Poring through the pages of the DMG, Tasha's and other source material books, searching for items to sprinkle the arduous path of my players, I oftentimes couldn't find what I was looking for. Many of the entries were gimmicky, mechanically lackluster, or didn't have the corresponding flavor of the environment or opponent they would be found in or looted from. I quickly realized that if I wanted loot that would fit thematically, excite my players, by not only tailoring to their character's style, but also providing them with worthwhile mechanics that enhances what makes them unique without making other options obsolete, that I would have to design these quote-unquote exalted items myself, with their own mechanics and lore. Now, why do I tell you this? Because it's important to know that I am but one DM, and these things were not playtested outside of my own campaigns, so take it in the spirit in which it is intended. For you to hopefully be inspired and take what you like and leave out or adapt what's incompatible. Every table is different, and that's what makes this game so wonderfully limitless. With that being said, let's ascend these steps and enter the forging area proper. The first exalted item to have sprung forth from the mystical forge known as Khoryn's Anvil carries the name Windsong, Last Stand of the Lost. It's a longsword I designed for a Tabaxi Kensei monk character, which was close to 10th level at the time. Since then, the optional rule-dedicated weapon has been released in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, allowing any monk with the right proficiency to potentially use it as a monk weapon. The player prided herself with the fact she could move incredibly fast in short bursts by combining the monk's unarmored movement and step of the wind with the Tabaxi's feline agility. Unfortunately, she very rarely could ever make full use of this exceptional speed, which is why I set my mind to creating Windsong. The first trait allows the player to change a regular strike with Windsong into a Wind Slash, causing it to deal 1d4 additional slashing damage for each 10 feet the character ran in an uninterrupted straight line prior to the strike. Thematically, I found that the ability evokes the samurai trope, often used in anime, where two opponents dash past each other, strike so fast they're invisible to the untrained eye. The longer the monk can plot out a straight path, the faster the momentum, and the more powerful the strike would be, should it find its way past the opponent's guard. I capped the number of times it could be used per long rest by linking it to her wisdom modifier. This allowed for some interesting choices in the following ASI levels, as maximizing dexterity might no longer be preferable over wisdom. However, using proficiency modifier or having it be a once per short or long rest ability are all viable alternatives. Now, if you're not looking for too crazy of an item, you could just call it finished. And who could argue with that? That was a rhetorical question, you are literally the game master. Any player who disagrees needs prompt reminding of the almighty power you wield. And whilst I would never condone threatening to kill a PC on a whim, I have found that a subtle comment regarding a particularly loved NPC usually does the trick. If on the other hand you, and consequently your players, are dying to tangle with the higher echelon of monster tiers, you can always soothe your conscience by adding additional unlockable traits. You could spend hours carefully plotting out secret mini-quests that the intended recipient has to blindly stumble through in order to attain these traits, only for the item to go to somebody else, completely ruining your setup. Or you can do what I ended up doing. Assign the traits to predetermined thresholds and having the players roll a d20 when they identify the item. The d20 cannot be interacted with. However, I do allow any one inspiration die to be used for a potential reroll. This increased emphasis on inspiration die is enough for even the most reserved players to peek out of their shells from time to time. The second trait I dubbed Windwalk, which improves Step of the Wind to provide both the dash and disengage action. Additionally, it builds further upon the first trait Wind Slash, by allowing the character to gain 1 armor class for each 10 feet it ran in a straight, uninterrupted line before making the attack. This oftentimes substantial bonus only lasts until the end of the character's next turn, or until this feature is used again. Now I designed it that the Wind Slash strike doesn't actually need to hit in order to gain the armor class bonus. However, that's something you could easily alter should you wish it. Overall, this trait should help satisfy the monk's fantasy of being a capable dodge tank without rendering patient defense useless or even incompatible. The last trait of Windsong, Lingering Windwalk, unlocked only if a natural 20 was rolled during the identification process, causes the protective winds to persist longer. Instead of losing the armor class completely at the end of your next turn, you instead retain half of the bonus, rounded down, each subsequent turn. Let's go over a quick theoretical example to get a feel for its potential. I'm going to assume all traits of Windsong are unlocked. However, keep in mind that's very unlikely if you're using the roll to unlock method. Imagine that our monk returns home to the Crystal Peak Monastery, only to find it invaded by a pack of goblins. She sees her mentor in trouble and decides to rush to his aid. First, she'd need 10 feet of her movement to bypass the mounted opponent blocking her way. Then, she uses her bonus action and a key point to activate Step of the Wind, which now provides additional movement and the ability to ignore the attacks of opportunities she'd otherwise incur. She dashes towards her target for 70 feet before attacking. On a hit, it would deal regular damage plus an additional 7d4 slashing damage. Let's say 17 points on average. She would also gain a bonus of 7 to her armor class until the end of her next turn, which would then become 3 the following round, then 1, then 0. Now, do any of your players have to play a tabaxi or even a monk to effectively use some of the mechanics of Windsong? Absolutely not. Rogues with cunning action and orcs with their aggressive trait can both dash as a bonus action. Barbarians of 5th level or higher that have picked up the mobile feat can already have a base speed of 50. Even a Wood Elf Ranger with a Zephyr Strike spell prepared can already reach 65 speed at 2nd level. Plus, they would have advantage on the strike itself. Bladesong Wizards are also interesting to consider as they have increased speed during their Bladesong, and they can even further enhance it using magic. Expeditious Retreat or Ashardalon's Stride are both somewhat underutilized spells which could find their way into the spotlight due to this item. And even if the party's mage isn't the one attuning to Windsong, they might still consider movement speed enhancers such as the haste spell to create fun little inter-player combos. So, to conclude, I believe this item provides a monk with interesting offensive, defensive and even utility options that fit well within its kit. It rewards the player for running around and interacting with the battlefield, giving it a dynamic feel, and offering the player a reason to make use of the class's unique ability to run across vertical walls and liquids. It may look overtuned, and maybe it is. But with Monk oftentimes being described as one of, if not the weakest class, I didn't feel too bad presenting the item to my players as you're seeing it now. Is it strong in fringe cases where the Tabaxi Monk can have limitless run-up distance? Absolutely, but in my humble opinion, not more so than some options available to other characters of similar level. I mean, this is what a CR17 encounter, piloted by arguably the best DM out there, looks like after a polymorph spell. Regardless, I hope that Windsong, or your personal version of it, can find its way to a few more players out there. Or at least, that I inspired some DMs in creating their own homebrew items with which to favor their players. If I can do it, so can you. This was my first time creating a video. Period. So any constructive feedback would be much appreciated. And should this video be received well, I might upload a few other magical objects here at Khoryn's Anvil. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.